Frantz Kantor, cartoonist, illustrator, toon talker. I'm here with
Jim Bridges, and I'm one of the blokes who set up the Australian Cartoon Museum, and I'm very interested in caricature and asking deep and probing questions to our artists here, like are you left-handed and things like that, you know.
Right. Okay, so the subject, I'm doing another Fez-oriented caricature today, so I'm going to go through a bunch of Fez people. The other day I did Peter Lorre, and today I'm doing a colleague of his.
Are you
which is
fezzing up?
Sydney Greenstreet.
Are you fezzing up to colleagues?
I'm confessing.
Yeah.
So I've just done a thumbnail and I've transposed it up to, I've sketched it
and
up on
this
the
is Sydney
tone
Greenstreet.
paper. Yeah, so I'm going to explain a bit of the drawing process, but before we get on to that, let's have a look at our subject. So this is Sydney, right? And he actually started quite late in life in acting. He was 61 when he started in films. So that's him with hair.
Ah, okay,
So
with
a
hair.
younger man, sort of an English and American actor.
Those were his pre-Fez days.
Yeah. So he's best known for Casablanca and
Green Dolphin Street.
yeah, and what was the other one?
I don't know.
Maltese Falcon.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Maltese Falcon, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very, very iconic.
I think they made 7 films together. Him and Peter Lorre.
He was actually born in 1879, so a few years after the Civil War.
He played creepy old fat guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was called the Fat Man, I think, in Maltese Falcon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, these are some of his films: Maltese Falcon, Casablanca, The Mask of Demetrios, Three Strangers, Passage to Marseille. That's with Humphrey Bogart again.
Yes.
The Verdict, Cross the Pacific, Background to Danger. So he's quite. No, it's not a web page.
No, there's more.
No, that's not a web page.
Oh, okay.
I just did a grab.
Okay.
And you know, this is him. He's the fat man from
Yeah, he was
Maltese Falcon.
very distinguished.
Yeah.
But he had this unusual way of talking.
Had a very deep.
Yeah, he had this unusual way of talking where he talked quickly but lightly.
He's a great villain.
Yeah.
Both of them, Sydney Greenstreet and Peter Lorre were fantastic together.
Yeah.
They worked so well together in a number of films. So, you know, and I loved when he lost his temper with him in the end of the Maltese Falcon, because it was a real a Ren and Stimpy moment. You fat, bloated lump!
Does everything go back to Ren and Stimpy with you? It's
Everything.
It's like
The well-bred voles around Ren and
It's like
Stimpy.
BC and AD, you know?
Yeah. They really liked him. Look, he's the star on the Casablanca. He's the lead character. Must have liked him very much. So why he's sort of synonymous because of the roles that he played with a Fez. The reason why I'm doing a Fez is because, like you know, Doctor Who, I think it was the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith said,
hang on.
Fezes are cool.
Ren and Stimpy had a Fez, didn't they?
Ren had a Fez.
Yes, well, that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
Come on.
Ren had a like a Peter Lorre voice.
Yeah.
So he'd often be in a big plush chair.
Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, there's.
That's a great picture.
Yeah, of course, Peter Lorre.
Great picture. See the thing behind his ear, the stick.
What's that for?
Well, it's a fly thing. You can get rid of flies.
Oh, right, like a horse's tail.
Yeah, and I think that was in what was the film? Pepe Le Moco.
Right.
That was from Pepe Le Moco. Yeah.
Interesting. All right.
So let's get stuck into it.
Get into his Highness's mush. So what I've done is I've actually
turned his Fez into
I made this film a bit darker.
You've turned his Fez into an ice cream container. Yeah. Or a Dixie cup.
Well, I'm complimenting
you're having a go at him.
I'm complimenting the one I did with Peter Lorre.
Yes.
So, you know, I've actually built. There's a number of ways when you look at a fat man. There's a number of different ways that you should sort of think about how to draw him. So he's kind of, you know, I was looking at many shapes, and of course the first shape that came to mind was like he's got such a big strong head. Maybe the right way is to exaggerate the scale of his head and just do a big fez or something like that. But really, what I've opted for is something that's a little bit more in tune with the weight under here. There's an enormous double chin. I'll show you the. There's a lot of these.
Yeah. Do you want to pull it all over?
Very strong.
Do you want to pull it over a bit so the picture can be in the screen? Yeah. Instead of just on the edge there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you just pull it? Yeah.
I can't pull it over too close.
You can't move it.
No. That's out.
Not touch. Not touch.
So anyway, so I've opted for this shape, and what I'm going to do is I like all of these. I like angles, strong angles like this.
Yeah.
It's great, curves and angles. So it's like a backwards B with a little hat. So and an ear, backwards B. That's it. That's the shape, right? So that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
When you do a caricature, you look at the shape that you've got to work with, and then you make a judgment. And the judgment is just your ability to play with whatever shapes that you want. So you can do anything you want to with a caricature. The rules are, of course, you've got to concentrate your efforts into this T-zone area, this mask zone of the eyes, the nose and the mouth, because that's where all of the recognition goes, apart from the fez, all of the recognition goes into those areas. So that's where we want to be able to draw a lot of the details, the little wrinkles and furrows and stuff, and little details in there, the actual contours, the contours of the expressions and the elements. All right, so that's something to consider. Also, there's a really nice Hollywood style lighting in this. It's very dramatic. So you've got like a spotlight, a main spotlight, which is coming in on the left, and of course it's creating a shadow area on the bottom right, and that's giving us the ability to create a sense of three-dimensional form, right? So always when we draw, we keep that light source in our imagination, in our mind, and that way everything will kind of cohesively, hopefully, go together. But again, this is live, as you could probably appreciate. Anything can happen, so we don't know.
Anything can happen.
Yeah, in the next 5 minutes.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, the next
half
30 minutes.
hour.
Next half hour.
I've heard that.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
Yeah.
Bum bum bum
Where have I
bum
heard
bum
that?
bum bum
I've
bum.
heard that.
Stingray.
Dun, dun,
So
dun,
this is
dun,
this
dun,
grip
dun, dun,
is
dun.
the this
grip.
is the violin grip.
Is that the violin? Oh, you were
Yeah.
taught that by your students.
I did.
By your students, you'll be taught.
Yeah, it's an actual. It's a nice thing. All right. So I was looking at these photos and I actually picked a beauty, which was this. I really like that.
Churchillian.
But have a look at that. Yeah.
It's Churchillian, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Churchill.
Yeah, Churchillian.
So I really like this.
Yeah.
But unfortunately it's really low on details.
Contact, yeah.
So
But you're an expert in drawing out of focus photos.
yeah, but you can see how this bottom lip, he's got that sort of puffy, very heavy, very prominent bottom lip.
Yeah.
His nose is roundish, but not overly big.
Yeah.
So his features are quite well proportioned in terms of the position of the
It
face.
looks a bit like a Gogh Whitlam on a bad day.
Yeah, but you see this sort of looking underneath these heavy brows, right? He's got these raised eyebrows, which are really interesting, but a lot of skin on the above the eyelids itself. So that's a really interesting arrangement of shapes, and we're going to sort of, play a little bit about that. I also have an impression that the eyes are sort of slightly inverted.
There's something slightly Asian about him, isn't there? There's something Oriental about him, the roles he played and the way he spoke and how the lighting was. And it's, he is creepy, and so is
Laurie.
They're both creepy, and maybe I don't know why they just worked together on screen. That's why they made them.
What's the
They
dynamics?
they wrote stuff for him, because they just worked on screen.
I actually thought he works really well with Bogart on screen.
Yeah. The other thing about this guy is that I have memories of him doing radio, listening to old tapes and stuff of radio shows, and he was good. He had this
Can you do an impression?
No.
It's awfully good. So he's got that sort of.
I need the fez. I need it. There's
stumbling.
no fez.
You can use my Greek
No,
sailor's
that's
cap.
that's not a fez. It's not even a Greek fisherman's hat. You know, it's more
It's
like
a Breton.
it's
fiddler's
more like
cap.
the Greek fisherman's hat after Yoko Ono got hold of it. You know,
Oh, that's.
and she turned it into something else.
Oh dear. Okay. So yeah, I wasn't going to go down that track.
I think you've grabbed him with that sketch. You've already got him, and I love what you've done with the mouth and the eyes. The
Yeah.
combination of the mouth and the eyes is telling me so much about him.
Well, you make guesses. You have to make judgments, and whether they're wrong or not. The whole idea of this process is that you enjoy this this journey.
Exploration.
Have fun.
Have fun.
So if you make changes, that's cool. Make some mistakes, that's cool.
Why should Cindy Lauper have a little fun?
Taking this face, by the way, and I've turned it a little bit around.
You have.
So there's a lot of things happening with this. If you go back to Boris here,
Boris.
his face in the photograph is more like this, and what I've done is I've turned it more like this. So I've got a bit more perspective happening, a bit more dimension to the nose, and of course we're going to be having these cheekbones prominently displayed in the picture too.
Do you
because
think
even if they're not there, they're always there.
Do you think we should get the jacks into his eyes, cleaning his eyes out a bit? They look a bit,
Jacks? What's the jacks?
It's the cleaning his eyes out on the skull. Look dark and omnibus. See, they're very.
You think he looks tired?
Do you think he needs a clean? I think he needs a clean. Get the old vinegar. I'm glad you put a nose on him because it sort of humanises him. And it helps with the directions, doesn't it?
Well, a little bit.
Yeah.
I do have this, but we're delaying the thing at the moment.
Yeah.
I do have this, which is pretty good. Gives you an indication of muscles and
It's the old
tendons.
pinhead without the pins.
See how many pulleys and levers are on this face? That's on every face.
What do they say? It takes less muscles to smile than. Takes about 45 muscles to frown and about 4 of them to smile or something. That's what Peter Cross said once.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's.
Oh, he sends his regards, by the way. I was on the phone.
Does he?
Send you. Say hello to France.
Yes, laugh mates.
Laugh mates, that's right, correct.
So,
I like having the fez.
form.
I like the thing coming down in front of your head.
Well,
Looks
it's
like-
just to show you that.
Looks
it's
like hair coming down,
Yeah. Well, just to prove that it's a fez. So, the other thing too, we're using perspective here, but you've got to really pay attention, keep an eye on the ball here with regards to some of these elements.
If-
You're moving them around, obviously, with a caricature like this.
If he would have been perfect to play Edgar Hoover, wouldn't he? He would have been terrific. Mind you, getting him
I've
into
never seen Edgar Hoover.
getting him
walking
into
around.
high heels and a dress would have been hard, but
I think that was mentioned in one story or something. That thing. I remember illustrating that. That it came out in a book, and I had to do an illustration for it. And
What-
sort of,
Well, he looks just. He's got that creepiness that Hoover
Jim.
obviously had. Yeah.
right.
Well, Hoover was a very dangerous individual. He had everybody by the short and curlers in America. He presidents, everybody.
All the dust bunnies.
Yeah,
It
everybody.
was a Hoover.
Anyway, I don't know much about this guy. So, what do you know about him?
Only from what I've seen, it just sort of makes when you've got a villain on you've got a villain on screen. You really want to love those villains. They really
Yes.
want to be
Yes.
important. Otherwise, you won't care
Yes.
about whether the hero
You've got to have a great
wins
villain.
the day, and you don't want the hero to die. I hate it when villains die. Sorry,
The villains die.
yeah, when villains die.
Well, I mean,
I hate it when that happens.
do you remember in Hercules? The villain dies. He gets cast down into, he's in Hades, but he gets killed, and then it's terrible because Hades is terrific in Hercules, the Disney cartoon, He's one of the best Disney villains ever. And then, you know, halfway through the mile-long credits,
he comes back.
You can hear, "Hey, where am I? What's going on?"
Yeah.
And so you say, "Hey, he's alive!" You know.
Boy, he's a god. Can't.
I know, but you. I reckon he was the best thing in that film. And you're right about villains. You know, you want them to, if they live, you know, it's like Long John Silver.
Yes. He paddles off to fight another day.
Well, you don't know what happens to him. He could be dead.
His little dinghy.
He could be.
Off you
he
go,
could be dead 5 minutes out of shot or something. But yeah.
His debts catch up with him.
But he wasn't much of a hero, a bad guy. I mean, we're talking about bad guys.
He was a bad guy pretending to be a good guy, and then the pretense of pretending to be a good guy actually made him, you know, into a good guy. So it was kind of redeemed by guilt, I guess, in the end. You know,
well, it's the love of Jim Hawkins.
Yeah, so it's the belief of Jim, who was looking for a dad figure, and he fulfilled that figure. That's what we should do.
That's right. He didn't have a dad figure. He had a mum figure.
He had a mum.
That's right.
Yeah. So he's in the market for a strong male.
In the market, yeah. And Blind Pew.
Role model. Mole rodel. A mole rodel.
Yeah, a mole rodel. Blind Pew didn't fulfil those expectations much, you know.
No, he was spotless.
Arr, who cut the Bible? Arr, the black spot. Arr, Jim lad. Arr.
So yeah, some things. How do I know so much about
Pirates?
Treasure Island. I never read the book.
Great book.
I've seen the film a few times, but
which one? A lot of people have played. You know, Orson Welles played him. Charlton Heston has played him. Robert Newton is the best. Who else?
Oliver Reed, maybe.
Did he?
I think maybe. Don't know.
I don't know about that.
He did.
And who's Wallace Beery? He played it. Great character.
Yeah,
he's like avuncular. He's like
what's an avuncle?
He's like Toby Belch. He's like
Toby Belch.
Yeah, he's a Falstaff character, Shakespearean.
Falstaff.
He's a Falstaffian character, larger than life.
Falstaff.
You know, larger than life. And there's been female versions too. Just trying to think, there was a female version
was it
Ken Russell? Yeah, Ken Russell made a film.
What?
And he has this sexy girl walking around in what do you call it? Fishnet stockings as Long John Silver.
What?
And what did John Lennon call him? Long John Saliva.
Right. So, looking for, look, I've got like a light. I'm trying to find a likeness here, but what I am exploring is some opportunities for shapes, interesting shapes and directions. So I'm looking at the reference and then sort of saying, you know, that's good, but what if I did this? And trying to bend the rules a little bit. So, you know, as I said to you before, it might work, it may not.
It's funny because you can actually draw him, and you've got his likeness, and then you'll put a couple of bits of white dots in his eyes, and bingo, he really comes out, you know. But there are other moments when I'm watching the drawing, and I'm thinking,
who's that?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden,
who's that Guma?
He really he slowly comes who he is, you know. But if you actually grab him in, I think that's a pretty good early sketch you've got of him, especially the relationship between the eyes and the mouth. But
he's not there yet.
No, but I'm saying that you can lose him at any stage, can't you?
Yeah.
At any stage.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
Yeah, it's a gamble. You play a game. It's, you know, sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. But you know what's interesting is the game.
That's right.
It's not winning or losing.
That's right.
Because you're not going to win every single game. You're going to lose a few games, and that just makes it more fun. That makes it more challenging because you've learnt something. Then you know, and you profit from that the next time you play. Don't put so much money into the kitty.
Many a tear has to fall, but it's all in the game.
What movie is that from?
That's a song, which I refrain from singing.
If it's Beatles, it's
No, you kicked me out of the table, so I didn't sing it.
No, don't do that. So there's a lot of little things I can play with, a lot of little details. This photograph's really good. There's a lot of tiny little details and some beautiful shading created by this Hollywood lighting system. I really enjoy lighting when it's done well.
You miss the Hollywood lighting system, do you?
Yeah. So I really enjoy the lighting when it's done well, you know, because it just gives you a lot of form to play with.
Yeah.
And this is toned paper. I'm using a brown pencil. So this is, I think it's called terracotta. So it's a reddish brown pencil. So I'm trying to get a lot of relevant tone in here without sort of committing to, you know, a lot of line work. So I'm building up a bit more form. So I'm using the grey paper to help me. So this is all going to be all very interesting. Hang on a sec, just let me just, oh, we've got it up there, yeah. I just wanted to make sure that doing these dual casts are a little bit tricky.
The image on the other monitor looks grainy, but it's good. It looks nice and strong. It's slightly fuzzing it out, you know.
Yeah, well,
but I think you could.
Well, live, I think they tend to mess with your bandwidth, perhaps. I don't know.
Okay.
It's all good.
So he was in his 60s when he took up when he became a star.
Yeah.
So do you know what was the first film that did it? Was it Casablanca?
I don't know. I'd have to go back to the wiki, but you know, I've only seen him in 3 films. I've seen him in 3 Humphrey Bogart films, and he plays similar
he plays
similar roles.
Yeah.
Not the same character, but similar roles.
Yeah.
And he does it really well. It's sort of like a walk-on. It's an expectation, I'm sure, that people sort of see him on there and say, "Oh, it's going to be the fat man. Let's go and see that film," you know.
Well, they used to call him the heavies in the old days. Like, they wouldn't call him a bad guy. They'd call him the crook or something. They called him the heavy. He played the heavy, you know, and he was very heavy.
Yeah, but he's of himself. He's not a violent man. He used he hide muscle.
Yeah, he hide muscle. That's right. But he was. You could say that, you know, Jabba the Hutt was inspired by him. You know, you could.
Yeah.
You could say that. If you know your cinema, you know.
Well, a lot of villains, especially around that time, modelled themselves on his performance because it was so iconic. It sort of created this trope.
My mother, during the...
Did she do it?
Now, during the 40s in Australia, you could go to the pictures, there was lots of local pictures, before TV came in. Your local picture theatre would have Monday and Tuesday films, right? And then they'd change it, and so Wednesday and Thursday were different films. And then Friday and Saturday, they were different films again. So you go to your local picture theatre 3 times a week and see, you know, B movies, big movies, shorts, cartoons, travelogues, documentaries, the whole lot, you know. And my mother always, she was a great cinema goer. She went to a midnight horror show during the 50s when they were showing Frankenstein and stuff like that at 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
And this was at a picture theatre called, oh God. No, it's gone. No, but it was in Mount Alexander Road. And somebody, this was during the 50s when rock and roll came in, and they were tearing up the seats in trains and picture theatres, you know, slashing them. And a riot started, and someone threw a...
tomato?
No, they threw a
television?
No. No.
Coke bottle? Beer bottle?
No, a fire extinguisher over the top, and it landed on someone's head and killed him. The police all turned up. Yeah. And my mum came home in a huge mess. She woke me up about 2 o'clock in the morning, and there were tears, and
Oh, because someone was killed.
Yeah, and the police were checking out everybody, and it was, the film
This was
stopped.
at a midnight horror
That's
show.
right. That's right.
So, did she go on her own?
Yeah, she went by herself. She liked to be, because my dad didn't like go to the picture, but Mum was a great picture goer, Anyway, this was during the 50s, and I'm saying Mum loved these two blokes together. She saw all their films, and she always, when I would talk to her about the old movies, one of the things she always talked about was this bloke and Peter Lorre. And she'd talk about how they were really sort of, there was something very interesting about them. It draws you in. Their relationship draws you in.
Yeah, well, you're not quite sure whether they're lovers or business partners or, somehow thrown together by circumstances.
That's right, but there's something
sure.
There's something there. That's right.
It doesn't really. It doesn't. I mean, it's not.
No, but that was the mystery.
Question.
No, I think that was the mystery. That's what Mum liked about him anyway. And she loved the way they, like Mum would try and do an impersonation of Sydney Greenstreet. And I'd always know it was a terrible impersonation, but I always knew who she was trying to do.
So the way I'm losing the likeness a little bit because of the positioning of a lot of these forms.
Well, you've changed the lips a bit from the original sketch. The angle of the mouth.
Not so much the angle. I think the
the top lip.
Maybe I'll fix it up with a black pencil when I get into the details. But I'm simplifying a lot of this, a lot of these shapes underneath as well. So there's not a lot of. I'm winging it, as they say, from here on in. This is unknown territory. So I'm doing this because I have a feeling.
Well, you're not following the
drawing.
Like. You're sort of, you've got images in your head that are burned in there, and then you've got the photo in front of you. Plus you've got the sketch over here. Plus something else is probably going on as well. Yeah.
I've just put my COVID safe mask on. No, it's just mumbling. Yeah, so, it's just a matter of, I'm trying to find something that I like here in this, and I think it's got something to do with these simplified aspects of shapes that I've got here. It's also, what's happening here? With this sketch, there's a simplification of the, sorry, I'm just cleaning the rubber off a little bit. There's a simplification of the eyes, so I think that's what I have to sort of play with. Because of the lighting, I made a sort of a simpler statement, and I think that's what I need to sort of sort out one way or another. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting assignment. Let's continue on. So I've stylized the features a little bit, so to get a little bit of area of play. I want to have some fun with this. The rest of the the outfit here, the tie and the shirt and the he's got these big lapels as well. So there's a lot of distinctive elements to his style that really nice. It's a nice point of difference. So I'm not really interested at this stage how close it is to his likeness, because I'm sure we can get there when I start narrowing with some details. We can sort of get closer to it. It's not going to be exact, but that's not really the point. The point is to explore it and see what happens. One day I'm going to do a caricature where it's just going to go completely haywire, and well, just to have fun, to explore shapes the way Stedman did, and pull things around like putty. Just because somebody has a round head doesn't mean that you can't sort of pull it into all kinds of new shapes, new narratives, to try to create sort of a recognizable impression, but under new rules. So caricature is like a matter of simplifying a lot of the complex shapes and details,
Who wrote these?
and then
Who wrote these?
exaggerating those shapes. I did. And then exaggerating those shapes, and then when you exaggerate those shapes, you start to put back into those new areas the narrative of the face and the details that you're trying to capture. So that's the process here. That's, you know, loosely, that's what I'm trying to do. And look what I've done. I went off the line because I had that sort of balanced. It's nice. There's a little bit of there's a bit of braiding.
It's a very nice Dixie cut there you've got on his head.
Yeah. So you wanted me to do a big, great big fez the size of the head.
I'm warming to your idea. I think you're right.
Because
I'm
I wanted
glad
to
you
have
followed
something.
your.
I wanted to have something that was in abeyance for this shape, this B, this backwards B. I got really excited when I saw that, and it was an accidental situation.
It just follows on from one of the lines, doesn't it? The face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few things. There's the angled tilt of the head and this duality of like a big man with a big face. You know, there's no sort of B shape. There's no B shape there. So where does the B shape come from? Well, it comes from this, where you're thinking, the head's important, so I'll make the head bigger, and then I'll make the face smaller, and then you go, well, hang on a sec, he has a double chin. So, you know, that means you're going to lose a lot of that area on the double chin. So what if you do a B, like a baby? Like, you ever seen the line drawing of Hitchcock?
Yes. He walks
like
in
that.
Yeah, that's it, basically, with a thing there.
Good evening. Yeah. And, you know, and that's it. And that's scary enough. Does he have a eyelash?
No, he has a little nose.
Does he?
Little twiggy nose sticking it there. Yeah, well, yeah, that'll do. Yeah.
That'll do.
Although he looks like Henry. I mean, you know Henry. Remember the comic strip Henry?
Yeah. Who did that? That's okay. Memory time.
Oh, I haven't read a Henry strip for 50 years.
Is that like was that the same era as the
comics?
The Yellow Kid or something?
No. I mean, you know, Lulu and.
Oh, okay.
You know, little squat and all those things. Little dot. Yeah. Well, you know, probably a bit earlier.
Yeah.
But he was a strip first before he became into comics.
Well, most of them are strips.
Like little Dot, she's comics. She didn't have her own strip.
Well, yeah, they're sort of licensing then, didn't they?
Yeah.
King Features brought them up and put them out. You know, that's how you get the Flintstones in the comics, in the Sunday comics. So I'm going to try to. I appreciate that we're running slow on time.
Do you have any plans in the future of using different colours, or just going to stick to the Blessed Trinity here? You know, the three colours, the three pencils.
I'm only using these colours because it's a traditional thing. Yeah. So I haven't tried.
But do you have any plans of?
No, because you could use any colour, I guess.
Yeah.
You just you know what colours are going to show up. If you use purple, it probably won't show up that well.
Purple.
I mean, you know,
well, I wouldn't see
try
it
just for
just
for laughs. See what happens.
Because even in your introductions, you talk about
just
the colours.
Brown.
You talk about the colours.
Yeah. Well, the colours they're sort of natural, earthy colours, so they're kind of reflecting the subject very well. You know, you're doing flesh tones or flesh. You're drawing flesh, so it makes sense to use some colours that approximate warmth of living tissue. If you're drawing a zombie, you probably want it.
You're doing a hell of a lot of work here over the last couple of months. You've done a hell of a lot of work here. One of these drawings every day, virtually. Well, except for some technical problems we've had. But where is this leading you?
Poorhouse.
Well, we know that, but where do you want it to lead you? I mean, you're enjoying the process. I think one of the best things about this whole thing we're doing is that your positive attitude to the drawing and putting the emphasis on having fun.
Yeah. Well,
having
that's
fun.
It.
And if you bugger up, don't worry about it. You've learned something, have some fun. Don't throw the drawing away like curses and carrying on. It's about having fun and exploring the medium, right? And testing yourself, you know? It's all about that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, really important thing because only a few teachers teach that when they're teaching because, you know...
well, I don't take things so seriously.
No, but especially when you're trying to do a caricature of somebody because if it doesn't look like them, in a way...
Deal with it, don't worry about it.
Well, in a way you fail. But
does it make it a less... does it make it like not a good picture if it doesn't look enough like the person? I don't think so.
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, but your attitude has built-in pushing you forward by having that attitude instead of I'm no good. You know, I mean, most artists have that. They, in a way, my experience of artists is that they're never satisfied, and that fact that they're never satisfied with what they're doing is the mechanism that pushes them on to get better.
Or stops you. And I would say that most people take up the task and more of them get stopped than actually continue drawing. Yeah, well, that's life, isn't it?
That's right. So that's why I think what your attitude to drawing is so important, personally.
Yeah. Well, how, I mean, it's like this isn't software based, so I'm not doing any like, shortcuts or anything like that. This is all like pencil and paper, like old school. So, obviously there'd be a slightly different process in Photoshop or Procreate, but I like to keep everything logical. So it doesn't matter what medium that I work in. If you work in watercolor or oils or pencil like this, you have some kind of a technique that complements each of the different mediums. It makes it a little bit easier. For example, I'll give you an example. I don't like acrylic because acrylic is a different way of working for me. It's not as forgiving as, say, oil paint or even watercolor.
People tell me
sort of
that
pretends to be oil paint, but it ain't because it's not as flexible.
Yeah, but I mean, oil paints take a long time to dry.
That's the reason why people like
and
acrylic.
Also watercolor. You got to grab it at the moment, bang, and you can't just work over it like you can with acrylic or oil.
Yeah, well, acrylic is sort of like a work in progress. I mean, constantly, isn't it?
Watercolor is very unforgiving.
No, I think acrylic's very unforgiving.
Oh, okay.
Because you've got to keep in control of acrylic, and it dries quite quickly, which means that it's not malleable.
So you're basing your opinion on acrylic on, like, you've obviously used a lot of acrylic, and then
I still use acrylic, but I don't like acrylic. I use acrylic as an underpainting. If I do oil painting, I'll do some of the work, the tonal work. Probably I'll work it out with something harmless like an acrylic underneath. A lot of artists do that. You're probably best not doing that, in terms of archival quality. Yeah. But hey.
Well, everybody's buying.
I'll be long gone before it disintegrates.
Everybody's buying cheap paints and cheap canvases and all that sort of stuff from China.
Yeah, I've got a thing about cheap quality.
And also the pigments don't last and all that.
Yeah, well, the pigments. It's quite important to have materials that perform for you. You can't. It's not like a fight. Like a lot of acrylics are very watery and they don't have good coverage, which means you've got to keep painting. It's a fight, constant fight of trying to get the colour flat and smooth.
Probably 3/4 of the art world would be using acrylic, probably more, at amateur and professional basis.
Yeah, I understand.
In the old days, when you worked with a studio or something like that, your work was meant to last as well. You did work that was meant to last, but it's not meant to last anymore, is it? a lot of
Acrylic will
art,
still last.
yeah, but a lot of art is just done
Colourless.
to. It's not. You don't, like all the, they paint, those portraits. The bloke who did what's his name? The bloke who did the Blue Boy and all those sort of things. Those, what's his name?
Velasquez.
No, British. Anyway, they would then put all these varnishes over their picture, so they'd last. You know what I mean?
And then, but then restorers have to come and remove.
Yeah, but I mean these things are 400, 500 years old. But they were designed to last. You know what I mean? You make something, and you create something, but you want it to last for as long as possible. Whereas that's not really sort of taught in the art schools anymore. In a way, you know what I mean? It's about getting the thing done. That's the emphasis on.
Yeah. Well, they still teach. Restoring. You still have.
Yeah, of course they do. But I mean, I'm just saying that the actual.
A lot of artists do study.
But things, the emphasis isn't on making something, whatever, painting or whatever. Yeah. Make it to last. The emphasis is not on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know. Well, it's one of those things,
We've gone through some pretty crazy times. Like my eldest daughter did an art course, a 3-year art course about 10 years ago, and they didn't do
3 years. So it was a master's.
No, it was just But I forget what it was. But I'm saying that what they at that particular period they weren't doing life drawing. They just did. They just got rid of life drawing to cut the class down as quick as possible to get the things done. Get people through. And I'm just saying that life drawing is so obviously important.
Yeah, it is. But can I just say though, it's not just the life drawing. It's if you first do life drawing, it takes a while for it to sort of sink into you about how what it's actually doing for your artistic process. So I think you need instruction when you first get in there. So
yes, of course. But, I mean, looking at that photo, you love that photo because of the lighting, and you've got all these little puffy bits coming out of his head and face at different places, which is exciting you, right? And so you want to grab them in your picture. Whereas, when you're doing life drawing, it's a bit different. But
it depends. You can have a longer pose.
Yeah.
You have more chance of creating something that is.
But I'm saying that
details you want.
The way art is taught is very different as well. Like I went to school with a guy who went off to art school, and we used to talk when I was at Tech with him. We'd talk about art. We'd talk about Dürer and our favourite artist.
Albrecht.
Yeah, Albrecht, and the way they did things, the way they drew things and stuff. And then he went off to art school, and then because all those. The teachers were artists. The teachers were artists, and of course they're caught up in their own fashion. Yeah. And he's coming back and telling me that, and I'm telling him about Tintoretto and all sorts of people, and he said it's all bullshit. I said, what do you mean? He said, art really started in the 40s, the 1940s, the American school, and all stuff before that's bullshit, And this is what he was taught. And he spent years unlearning stuff like that, but a lot of people went through those periods, of education. It's like you go to study history and you end up studying history under a teacher who's a Marxist, and he teaches history.
And not a Groucho Marxist.
No, not Groucho Marx. He teaches history through a Marxist eyes, and he's the main person you do history with. So that's what you're taught. But there's feminist history, there's all sorts of histories, So it takes you, even though you're taught, it takes you years to get. This guy is a good painter. This friend of mine is a good painter, but he'd come and tell me stuff like that, and I just look at him. I said, what about all these other guys before it? Fra Lippo, all these guys, Caravaggio, all these people. Oh, they're no good, And then, you have to unlearn all this stuff, and he'd be looking at Caravaggio for shadows or something else, and he'd be looking at Courbet for something else, and discover all these things. But Anyway.
So yeah, well, I don't know. Look, art is I guess it's a topic that.
Well, you're primarily self-taught, aren't you?
Yeah, but the yeah.
All right. So
that doesn't mean I don't value art history.
No. But you're interested in art history.
But yeah, you know, look, there's a you can argue the intellectual properties of an apple. You can argue the intellectual properties of art. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what's it taste like? So I'm sorry to pull rank on all of you guys that are, interested in the discussion of art. But
what does art taste like?
Yeah, draw something, for God's sake. Paint something. If you want a real narrative on art, you have to practice art. You've got to do art.
Practica.
So that's the thing about art critics is, I mean, they're great, but the narrative is like already defunct because of the fact that they don't paint.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. There's a missing element. The missing element is the experience, and that's one thing that Robert Hughes hasn't got.
Although he started off as a painter.
Yeah, but he didn't finish up as a painter.
No, he didn't finish up as a painter. It's interesting when you, for instance, about 20 years ago, I was trying to bring back these works of Cunahan. He's an Australian artist, social realist artist, who did caricatures of footballers in local newspapers. And he did these in the 40s and 50s and I think some 30s. No, mostly 40s. And they were very small. They were about 2 inches square. And they were to break up the column of the print in the football, the sports section, and of course then they get cut out by some fan out of newsprint, and then they stick them in a book, and then later on I got a very bad photostat of this scrapbook, and I was trying to bring back the blacks and the whites because it's all grey, it's all messed up, and when you actually go over the line of the artists themselves, when you're bringing back,
you have a feeling
you get this feeling.
What it feels like to draw it.
You get this understanding of the artist that you didn't have before, and it's a combination of muscle memory and all sorts of stuff. But you feel to really fully understand an artist, you have to do that.
Yeah, it's a connection.
Yeah,
because
there's
there's a physical.
And then you actually, like, you can see patterns. I mean, an art critic looks at the patterns he sees in the artwork and he says, oh yeah, well, de Kooning did women looking at you straight and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And they look at the patterns and then they put the patterns together and they write something. Or they compare it with something else, which is what you're taught at university, to compare
a summer's day.
No, you compare a Greek vase to an Etruscan vase or something like that.
Right.
And the differences.
What's a Greek earn?
I don't know. How much do they earn? Anyway, but when you actually go over the lines,
it's all drachma.
When you actually go over the lines of the artist, something else happens. As I said, it's a combination of it's a physical thing. It's a deep. It's a thing you can't put your finger on, but it's part of it is muscle memory, and you do understand that artist in a way that you never did before, and it's an important way. It's an important way of understanding him. So, yeah.
That's a very interesting point. I've never thought so much about that because the making art is a sort of a personal experience. So I've never really thought about what it would be like to draw over somebody else's.
Well, I did it. I did it to bring back this work, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was doing it with Textacolor and whiteout pens.
Right.
And I'd blow up the picture to A4 because they're very small. And I had to be very careful because you have to decide what you're doing because you can't, you can't make up lines that weren't there.
Right. Yeah.
You've got to do the artist justice. and it's a specialist job, but no one else is doing it. But the point is, at that stage, I thought that what's his name?
Cunahan.
No, Cunahan is the artist that I'm working on. Now, Paul Harvey and me used to have these arguments that Cunahan was the best artist, and I said no. George Finey was a much better caricaturist. Now, I've actually tried this as an experiment to go over Finey's lines, right? It's like inking Jack Kirby's pencils. People get these books.
Yeah.
You can get books now of Jack Kirby's pencils, and
blue lines or something.
No, they're pencil.
Oh, and that's to practice inking.
Yeah, and then you ink your own. And I'm just saying, when you actually do that, you actually understand Kirby in a completely different way than you did before. Because just using your eyes is not enough.
No.
And I think that if you were a practicing critic, but the trouble is, if you were an artist and also a practicing critic, you'd probably stop being a critic. You know what I mean? Because there's so many things, you just couldn't do both. One would stop the other one. But I'm saying, having that extra information of knowing about what you have to do to get that result, physically knowing that in a physical way is very important for a critic, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, the best critic that I've ever seen is the little old nun.
But that's passion.
Yeah, but
her passion drags you over the line.
Yeah, but that's what I'm looking for, I guess, in the dialogue. That's missing from Robert Hughes.
Yes, but also, you see, when you're teaching a subject, yes, that he is very witty and very very cutting too with some of the things he has to say.
Yeah.
But when you have the passion like that nun does, forget her name, Sister
Betrill.
Is it?
No, it's the Flying Nun. Don't ask somebody.
Oh God!
Someone who grows up in front of the TV. Don't ask them any questions like that. What's this? Who's that Gooma?
Okay. Well, oh God, it took me right off now. her passion.
The Flying Nun?
No.
The old nun.
The one who's standing in front of a Rubens painting talking about the flesh. Her enthusiasm really sparks your interest, and you listen to her. And even if you're not interested in art, I've watched my family look at her, and most of my family at the time weren't that interested in art, but they're looking at her in a different way because she's sucking them totally in with her passion. And as a school teacher, as a person who's trying to tell a story to enlarge your understanding of a subject, passion is the number one thing you have. You have to have that. And if you're just standing there, shooting off bon mots in a layback sort of way, it's and what you could be saying could be gold, but it's how you say it. And her adjectives weren't that much, but her, you actually looked at the flesh. You looked at the, you obviously know that Rubens has a lot of fleshy stuff in his pictures, but you actually looked at them differently in a different way because of this woman's passion. And so passion's very important.
Yeah, she's kind of like the Nigella Lawson of art.
Well, yeah. I accept it, Nigella's easy on the eye.
Yeah, but
whereas the nun wasn't.
Nigella does something with food that no other food critic does, which is go, she'll actually taste it and go yum.
Yeah.
And so you sort of think,
but
I feel hungry now.
But they have close-ups too, and as I said, Nigella is also easy on the eye. Whereas the nun isn't, but the nun is terrific. The nun is terrific.
I've never seen close-ups of the nun, so I don't know.
Well, that's right. Why? Because it's not about her, it's about the picture she's standing in front of.
I think it's more about her too. I think it's her feelings. If you care about something enough to explain it like that, and remember she's a nun, right? So she's talking about naked people in paintings.
Yeah.
So it's like you suddenly, feel a little bit shy and a little bit
all that,
awkward.
but that's interesting because that actually prepares you that prepares you to give her more interest than you normally would. And then her passion just overwhelms you and drags you into the painting.
Yeah, well, I actually prepared to not like the painting because of, I didn't care for the painting.
Yeah.
I didn't care for, Rubens or Delacroix or whatever. But she makes you care.
Yeah.
And that I think is an extraordinary feat because, it's something that you never gave credit to before. Suddenly, it's like you're noticing something for the very first time. And, I made a mistake there.
Well, there's a lot of reasons why Van Gogh is very popular. There's a lot of reasons. And, but one of the reasons, one of the big strong reasons, to my mind, is that if you read his letters to his brother, they're some of the best things I've ever read about art and the way they're described. And they're passionate. They're incredibly passionate. And he was passionate about sketches in magazines and passionate about stuff he saw in an art gallery and the colour he saw on the back of a girl's neck on a what do you call it, a scarf, and he'd be writing about these things, really, getting into it,
And how did Theo respond to that?
Well, Theo's, they're love letters. They're incredibly passionate letters, and they're sort of, because art to a lot of people, there are people who don't understand art. They just they don't understand the grammar of it. They don't know how to begin to talk about it or anything. They just sort of stand in front of it, and But Van Gogh was really talking about Doré's drawings of London and all sorts of stuff, Japanese wood blocks, and he'd be writing in such a beautiful, beautiful way. And anybody who's interested in art at all should read the letters. There's lots of versions of them around.
Yeah.
But they're just wonderful. Some of the best stuff I've read about art. And he's talking to his brother, who goes back a long time. And of course, Van Gogh obviously started lots of arguments with all sorts of people and argued and carried on and had all sorts of communication problems, long-term communication problems with lots of people. But with his brother, he felt safe and he could talk about these things, And they're just wonderful. They're just some of the best stuff I've ever read about art. And it's about passion. It's all about passion. It really is. Hughes can be saying some incredibly witty things and beautifully on the page. They're beautifully written on the page. But when someone's, his passion is there, but it's not. It doesn't drag you in. You keep on. Who is this guy? Why is he talking like this?
Yeah, well, it's a passion for his own words. Really.
Yeah.
He's interested in the subject, but he's more interested in what he has to say about the subject. So that's.
Well, that's the other thing about critics, because whether you're writing about film or you're writing about arts or music, whatever, you end up writing about yourself because. You are the mechanism by which all this stuff is going through you, and you just
in a way, this is about me too, because I'm making choices that are only they're my choices. Yeah,
influenced by Rem and Stimpy.
Yeah, everything in life is influenced somehow by Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah,
it's sort of the cartoon version of what's that? 5 degrees of.
Well, I thought you were going to say the Rosetta Stone.
Yeah. No, what's the thing with
5 degrees of 7.
Of that actor.
Bacon.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon. Yeah. So
everything is.
No, but that's just connection. That's about connection.
Yeah. Well, everything is connected.
Yeah, everything is connected, but you've got to make the connections. That's what art is too, isn't it? Making connections.
It's interpretations. It's an interpretive thing. I'm interpreting these shapes and their relevance and stuff like that.
Very interesting. The highlights on that and those lines dragging there.
Yeah. Well, it's a dialogue. It's a story that I'm telling here. Now, whether it's the story that is in everybody's head, You know, that this is Sydney Greenstreet. Does it look like him? Does it feel like him? You know, a lot of the relationships with caricatures, like if you look at Hirschfeld, for example, you know, they're so stylized, they're so simplified that, you know, the notion of it, whether it looks or not like the person, you can be disputed. But does it remind you of the actor? Yes.
Yeah, but you see,
somehow
the point is, you have to see Hirschfeld's sketches. He does dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of lines, and out of all those lines, he selects one, and then he makes that darker and darker. But besides, I think, you see, he was a very interesting caricaturist, because besides getting the likeness, he tried to get their life force, the individual energy that goes through them. And in particular, his drawings of dancers, he captured that better than any other artist. And I mean painters even. Better than even or anybody who's painted dancing, he did it better than anybody else, and he did it with a single line, and mostly a continuous line that went from one leg up and then down into the other leg. You know?
Well, a gesture is a term that you apply to drawing, and it's a linear property, but it also it comes from dance. So but having a linear artist,
it's the life force. It's the life force, and this gets back to animation, because animators get up and they'll dance around the room, because that's what the character has to do, and they have to get it into their system to be able to draw it. They have to get it into their muscle memory, or whatever you want to call it, you know? This guy never had a tan.
Well,
he always looks, you know.
Yeah, he looks very indoor. He's an indoor version.
I like the lip.
So, you know, you're looking at the photograph and you'd be making judgments about the importance of textures and little accents of light here and there throughout the skin. You know, so there's a lot of, you know, with the face, there's a lot of pulleys and things. You can sort of explore these in greater detail, you know, with those sketches of people without skin, and even zombie movies, I guess. But the
no thanks.
But the idea is that the face is such an incredible
through zombie
machine of communication. So, you know...
Say that again?
The face is an incredible machine of communication.
Yes, it is,
And it communicates in a variety of very subtle ways. So, in every respect, you know, like you could say that man is the white ape, or it's like a simian sort of structure, skeletally.
Well, he's the naked,
the naked ape. Yeah,
as Desmond Morris would say, he's the naked ape, and therefore you can see, you can see more about what's actually on his mind from his face.
Yeah, but we've got skin rather than to hide. You know, and this skin is incredibly flexible, much more flexible than like a chimpanzee or orangutan or something like that. And don't get me wrong, they're very expressive faces.
Especially
all animals,
especially the orangutan. The orangutan.
Well, they remind us of old people.
But when an orangutan looks at you deep into your eyes,
it's terrifying.
No, it's not. It's almost like they have the wisdom of the world in their eyes. Yeah.
Well, is that the orangutan though, or is it us? Because we tend to anthropomorphize.
Well, I don't know about that, because I've actually seen foxes close up, right? My experience of animals close up, and they look at you like you're a piece of shit. They look like, what the hell are you looking at? You know.
Well,
they're not at all scared. They're not at all scared. They've got this incredible, physical arrogance that completely dominates you. You know, because they're wild. They're wild. They live on a different level. You know.
Yeah. Welcome to the world of cat owners, though.
And then you see tigers and things like that who are feeding their cubs. And like any cat that's got all these cubs, they're just exhausted and they're half asleep all the time, and they've got that, you know, they've got this incredible maternal feeling about them, and yet they're wild things, you know, they're incredible, you know.
Yeah, but I don't know whether, I mean, we have a similar experience to animals, I guess, but I think people have, you know, a separateness from animals that makes us not better, but makes us different, more complicated.
Well,
I
what
think people
like,
are really
for instance,
complicated.
you're really good with dogs.
And it doesn't matter where you are on the planet.
Your drawing of dogs are exceptional. I mean, you know, I don't want to piss in your pocket, but they're really, you seem to understand dogs. And, you know, what's going through your mind while you're actually drawing this dog? I mean, like,
Well, I like dogs.
the same process. I mean, but I think you do better dogs than you do people.
Mm.
Is it because you give a dog, like, you think dogs are purer than us? They've got less problems, or
No. No. There's nothing.
or do you see them as a version of humans?
Look,
Do you use the same criteria with your dog drawings as you do with people?
No, I appreciate people that do that. I really do. I understand it. It's, you know, they regard them as a baby or something like that.
Yeah.
I do understand it and I do appreciate it. But I don't know whether it's...
Well, dogs are the new
It's
children.
the dog.
Dogs are the new children.
Yeah,
People aren't having children anymore.
I'm inclined to think it's more a case of us projecting that humanity onto another creature. You know, not to say that they don't have feelings and things, of course they do. But I don't know whether... you can't say that another animal is as complex as a human.
No.
I mean, I love looking at apes interacting with humans, and you know, and people often comment that, you know, how close these creatures are, the human and the ape, you know, or even the human and the dog, how close they are. But it's just an observation that I don't think is based on true fact. I think it's more a case of projection of you know, what we want to see in the relationships with animals rather than what's actually there.
With scientific inquiry, you know, you don't have that much projection going on. You have, you know, you sort of, you know, you have, you have tests done, and they do all sorts of things to sort of prove. They're not conclusive tests. No, I know.
You can rate an animal to a human experience. So say, you know, a dog has an intelligence of a 7-year-old in human terms, but it doesn't really relate that closely to the human experience, you know. But look, I'm going off the track here. Let's get back to what we're doing here.
Poor old Sydney, we've been neglecting him.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about the drawing process, I guess, you know, and finding something that communicates. So what I'm looking for in the face for the thing is not just the likeness of, you know, the what do you call, relative likenesses of all of these elements. So if you take one at a time, for example, the right eye, and compare it to the right eye on the drawing. Right, and then you do the same with the left eye, and the same with the nose, and the same with the lips. This is essentially what I'm doing, backwards and forwards, constantly. And this is what I mean by this T-zone, this area of the face. You're really in a process of comparing, but you're comparing now differently. You're comparing an apple with an orange.
Because this eye is different to this eye, and this is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then you have a completely different picture you're taking it from. And then you have this one. It's a
process.
It's a process that's forever sort of being checked and looked at.
Yeah.
Not just, oh well, I've done that, now move on. I've got the eyes. You might lose the relationship between the eyes and the mouth because of the way you drew the mouth, or the distance, the ratio. You know.
Yeah, it can happen.
Yeah.
You suddenly. You know, I mean, look, a lot of things can happen. It's the you know, the Bob Ross experience.
Bob Ross.
Yeah, the painter. I never really had time to watch his films. A lot of people.
Oh, that Bob Ross, yeah.
A lot of people talk about. My kids used to talk about his the way that he used to talk about the paintings.
Yeah.
And really, it's a matter of, I guess, finding a place to be happy with your experience of the painting rather than the results. And sometimes you get varying results. You might like the result, and then the next day hate the result. Or you might hate the result, and the next day like the result.
Yeah, but every day is different, and you know, some days you could just coast, other days it's a struggle. You know, this is.
But every day is a pizza day.
Is it? I get sick of pizza pretty quick.
No, I'm just talking about when you do something. I've spent an hour now on this, or a bit more. I don't know what the end result will be. But the experience is what I'm more interested in, rather than the end result. I'm not on a deadline. No. I hope you guys aren't, but I'm exploring, and that's what I'm doing. I'm just finding something that I like, and
well, I think if you spend
building up on that feeling.
If you spend an hour a day,
I've learnt a lot about this skin at the top of eyelids now. Just from doing.
Well, I've never seen you draw that before.
Very interesting.
I've never seen you draw that before. How those lines are pulling up.
Well, I found them in my skin, so they're like little pulleys, little stretch lines that are present in some form by stresses on the muscles that are around the eye. There's a lot of stuff going on in the face.
There's someone you should draw next.
Muscles.
No, Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah, well, I've done, people with large eyes before. Sometimes they're a medical situation, and they can be quite pie-eyed or wall-eyed or whatever they call it. I don't know. Eyes looking in different directions. Yeah. It's an interesting thing, like Groucho.
Yeah, but Rodney Dangerfield has a lot of emotion on his face. Yeah. He has a lot of pain and worry.
That's the other thing.
He has a lot of pain and worry on his face.
That's actually a perfect example of how faces can communicate.
Yes.
Because you can communicate a lot of emotions on the face.
And he's saying
totally different.
He's saying, I get no respect. And you look at his face.
And you don't give him any respect.
No. And you can sort of see why he doesn't get any respect.
Yeah.
And so it backs up what he's saying. And yet it's just
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing of, faces like this communicates. That's why Sydney Greenstreet is successful. You like that segue? We're getting back to Sydney.
Oh, yeah. I remember him. Yeah.
Sydney Greenstreet was successful because of the communicative properties of this face, this incredible expressive machine that he had at the top of his neck, in front of his head. Very, very expressive. Let's try to get his name right now. And hopefully get a bit of...
Yeah, you're going to get a little in? Ooh.
It's squished up.
Not bad. I thought you were going to do ST full stop.
Oh, that's a good... I should have thought of that. I didn't think of that. This is... he's still drying. You can still see it's a little bit splotchy in bits, but you know what? I've got some nice sharp shapes combined with some round shapes, some volume that indicate roundness here and there. I like the way that the chin has got this thick response to the line, and overall I think it's quite interesting, the face.
I love how close you've got the top lip to the nose too. That's really interesting.
Yeah, well, these are sort of things that you follow your impression of these expressions that he makes. I mean, you could argue that the likeness is you know, in another
It's
area.
a great photo.
Yeah, wish I had a sharper version of
It's a great
this.
photo.
Because everything, the shadows and everything, and the fact that...
And the shadow goes down all like, and it's got light on both sides of it. That's interesting, you know.
Well, yeah, I've put the side light back in from this side, but it'd be nice to have something over here that would indicate that you know, a wider sort of look for the light, just subtly bringing itself into around his ear.
George Sanders look in that photo too, isn't it?
Well, it's the same sort of era, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, you know, they knew how to photograph.
Well, their heads, the angles, all
their
that
actors,
stuff.
their stars.
Yeah,
they
did.
definitely knew that.
Yeah, they did.
So whether or not it looks like him is up to you, but I like the experience. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And this is Frantz Kantor and
Jim Bridges
saying we'll catch
So,
you.
see you later, Sydney.
Catch you on the flip side.
Bye bye.